Hey, I'm Darlene, and you're watching a rapid-fire art tutorial. In this video, I'll show you how to draw this nose and how to shade it, step by step. Lightly draw a wedge shape first. This is a 3D shape with a trapezoid on the bottom. Make sure these lines are parallel to each other. We're drawing a nose rotated 3/4 of the way to the left. You can make and use a Play-Doh model like this one to help you visualize the nose from any angle. See my DIY video to learn how. And here's the size of my sketch in case you're wondering. After you've drawn the wedge, add a circle at the tip and on each side. The size and position of each circle can be modified so you can make your nose look more unique. I'll show you some examples later. Notice how these two circles are closer to each other than these two are. Now you can use this as a loose set of guidelines to create a more realistic nose. The circle at the tip of the nose helps us draw a more rounded shape. Wrap your stroke down toward the base of the nose, creating the columella. Draw the wings of your nose by outlining just the outer part of each remaining circle. Loosely follow this construction line to create the bridge of the nose. At the top, angle your stroke outward to account for the brow bone. I hope it's not too difficult for you to see. Let me erase the construction lines a little bit to make the nose outline look more obvious. For the nostril that's closest to us, we'll roughly draw it here. It's positioned between these two circles, a little bit further away from the tip of the nose. And it's under this construction line. Make sure you don't go too close to the wing outline, also known as the alar crease. Otherwise, the flesh in this area might look too thin. The other nostril is barely visible from this angle. When you draw it, just remember not to go too close to the wing outline. Let's make the columella curve up a little bit at the end. I've drawn a slightly concave slope for the bridge. You can customize yours any way you'd like, by making it convex, wavy, more concave, or pretty straight. I'll show you how to shade this after we go over just a few more examples. If you experience difficulty drawing the sides of your nose, create a Play-Doh model like the one I've made here. Just add a sphere on each side. Check out my DIY video to learn how. If you practice drawing this wedge from many different angles, over time, you'll be able to draw noses from your imagination in even the most challenging angles, because you'll be able to grasp what the blocky form of a nose looks like from any angle. Of course, you'll also need to reference real life, and learn some anatomy too, in order to make your noses look more realistic. You can do fun things like try skewing the shape of your wedge, like making your nose wide at the bottom and narrow at the top. You can also stretch your wedge longer for a longer nose. Let's very quickly shuffle through a few other examples so you can learn how to customize your drawing further. Let's duplicate this wedge over here for the next example. If I draw larger circles, you'll see that the nose becomes more bulbous. Let's give this one larger nostrils to match. So we basically used the same wedge, and all we did was change the circle size, making the two noses look wildly different. Let's look at another example, using this wedge angle. Let's try smaller circles this time. I'm drawing a narrow bridge to match the size of the circle I'm intending to draw. and then give your nose a more realistic shape by loosely following your blocky construction lines. So you can see that just by tweaking a few things, you can draw any nose shape that you'd like. If you're enjoying this tutorial and you're finding it helpful, I would really appreciate it if you would hit the like button. It really helps the channel out and helps spread my tutorials to more people. Thank you! Okay, I think those are enough examples. Let's get back to shading the nose. If your lines are dark, erase them until they're very faint. Don't erase the nostrils though. I'm using a 2B pencil for this entire tutorial, but you can use any pencil you'd like. An HB school pencil is fine. Let's start by shading the darkest areas first, mostly along the left side of our nose. For this drawing, we have our main light source coming from the top right. Let's also shade quite dark around this wing, where the skin turns away from the light. Let's make it a little bit darker. As you shade, try to keep your strokes close together to minimize gaps, making your shading look less grainy. If there are too many gaps between your strokes, when you blend, your drawing isn't going to look very smooth. To learn more about how to shade and understand how light works, check out my in-depth shading video. After shading, you may notice that your nostrils are too light. Just go back over them, pressing a little bit harder to increase the contrast. Next, we'll add some midtones to soften out the transition from our shadow zones to light zones. What that means is we're just going to add a lighter shade of graphite next to the dark areas. As you shade toward the right along the bridge, gradually lighten your pencil strokes. I'm going to leave this part the lightest, so avoid overshading this area. The main light source comes from above, so let's add a light layer of graphite along the entire bottom of the nose, so it looks like it's in shadow. I will eventually make it even darker, but let's build the shading up slowly, in layers. Let's shade this side now, excluding this area halfway up, where the bone underneath the skin is raised. As you approach that area, lighten your strokes gradually. Shade the top of the nose too. Check your drawing for gaps between your pencil strokes or abrupt shading transitions and shade them lightly to make the transitions look less harsh. If your construction lines are still showing through, make sure you've shaded dark enough, or erase the construction lines as best as you can. I'm leaving mine somewhat visible so you can see how I'm loosely following the wedge as I shade the nose. Now I'm going to shade a few areas a little bit darker. The top of the nose, because it faces down slightly, away from the main light source. This area dimples inward, away from the light. Also here, along the top of the circle. Well, we can't see the circle anymore. From there, shade upwards a little bit, and fade out gradually. And also darken the very bottom of the nose. Shade the area directly under the nostril and at the base of the nose. Leave a thin strip of light in between to make the skin appear raised. I like to step back from my drawing every now and then to check how it looks overall. I think the bottom of the nose could be even darker. Try not to follow the exact shape of your trapezoid. Instead, round off the top like this to prevent the nose from appearing blocky. Okay, let's blend this now. You can use any blending tool of your choice. I'm using a regular facial tissue wrapped around my finger. Instead of swiping the tissue across your entire drawing all at once, try to blend in sections, going from a light zone into a darker zone to avoid smudging your work. Use a clean spot on your tissue whenever it becomes too dirty. Your tissue is probably too dirty when you notice the graphite being transferred way too much from one area to the next. If you're happy with the result, you can leave it at that. Or add some highlights to make your nose pop out more. Using a putty eraser and a gentle dabbing motion, I'm going to add some bright highlights by erasing certain areas of the nose, like the tip, the top of the nose bridge, the side of the nose, a thin strip along the far side of the columella, and a narrow strip under the nostril. If your highlights aren't popping as much as you'd like, you can try darkening the lightest areas a little bit more to increase the contrast around the highlight, and/or use a white gel pen or a correction fluid to draw your highlights. I'd like to get your opinion on something. Do you like shorter, more concise drawing tutorials like this, or do you prefer my longer, more detailed tutorials that are usually more than 30 minutes long? I'd love to get your feedback so I can improve your viewing and learning experience. So let me know down in the comment section. When you're going along the columella, erasing a long narrow space, instead of using a pointy tip, try flattening your kneaded eraser instead. Take a few steps back from your drawing to see if you'd like to tweak anything. I'll just darken this crease right here and the one on the left to increase the contrast. And that's it. I really hope you enjoyed this drawing tutorial. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next one.